It's been a while since I've actually posted a video. I haven't really had that much to say in terms of news or what's available in terms of knowledge. I mean, lots of things are coming out about how the countries are run and the impact, the sort of popular thought of the way people should be treated or herded is coming to the forefront. But really, that is a long time coming, and it's like a trickle, you know. So by the time you leave your bucket there to take a drop and another drop, the sun comes out and dries it all up again. So right now we're just waiting for, I'm just waiting for the rain to fall, you know. So that knowledge that comes in such a gush that no one can ignore it. Right now it's too easy to be sort of have your mind wander off in all kinds of direction. But the reason I wanted to do a video was really because I had some issues with my health, and I think you as black people or as people that grew up in a sort of farming community that grew up kind of on herbs and vegetables and their own produce, we tend to have a kind of interest, maybe more so than say people that grow up in towns, about what they put into their body and the impact that is quickly felt in terms of joints or muscles or toxins or skin or hair or whatever. So I had recently realized that really in my local supermarket, there is very little that I can actually eat that is not fermented, mucus forming, or a derivative of some sort of chemical waste. And really, I should have made a list before I did this video, because there are so many things. I mean, if I just think about my local supermarket, and the first thing I come across will be the ice cream. And of course, we know that milk and sugar and butter, all of these things produce a lot of mucus in the body, and it is well known that most diseases are formed when mucus either hardens, congeals, or starts to become a breeding ground for bacteria and disease, and the disease starts to use mucus to spread itself across the body. So mucus is not something we really want. And then cheese, of course, is made of milk, and cheese is probably one of those produce that most forms mucus in the body. It's basically a block of mucus. So that's that. And then there's, you know, meats, and of course we know that meats carry worms, because worms live inside of human flesh. And because animals are not very good at either controlling their food or have no control over what they ingest. Generally they eat food that, and they live in a way that allows worms to spread from animal to animal, and then we eat those animals, and then of course those worms are then taken into our bodies. And then there's sushi. Of course, we know sushi carries the most tapeworms. And if you've ever eaten sushi in your entire life, I think sushi has more tapeworms than anything hard we can think. Say, let's just think of some sort of river or some dirty, dingy water in some backwater somewhere. You know, which you do normally expect worms to be. There's more tapeworms instead of sushi. You know, gorgeous sushi is a very aristocratic food. It's a very high class food. It basically is a breeding ground for pus and worms. And then there are the breads, of course, that is made from basically waste, the waste of wheat, the waste that comes off of wheat, that is refined and bleached to get rid of the toxic smell that is usually poultry poo, which lots of bacteria use to actually deposit their feces in. So we're really eating bleached feces when it comes to flour. And then we sort of go into the canned goods. And of course, there's nothing really wrong with those canned goods, except if it's not alive, it's dead. So we're basically having dead food in a can. So that's not good. And then, the herbs and spices have been sitting there. I mean, herbs should be digested within hours of being picked. Well, they've been there for years. We don't even know how long. So that's not really good for you. And then there are the crisp and the fast foods that are made with oils that eventually are like a sticky lining of your arteries and create toxins inside of your cells, which deposit itself as cellulite or as blocking your main arteries and causing heart attacks. So in your local supermarket, there's very little you can actually eat apart from the fresh produce. And so this is a problem I've had, in that I've recently become a vegetarian and become very health conscious and just decided to go back to my roots. In terms of what I allowed myself to eat and what I really wanted. I read a study recently by a well-known doctor. I don't know how well-known he is. Actually, he's just become known to me, and he speaks of food produce, and he speaks of detoxing the body, and how frequently we should detox ourselves from not just the toxic air, but the toxic water. And he goes a little bit of information about the water that we drink that comes from our tap. It's really, water lives in sort of like a cycle. There's a cycle to water, and your water that you drink and the water that you defecate in is the same exact water, except it's purified using certain chemicals and to get rid of the smell and the bacteria that's deposited itself in there. I mean, in certain areas, you can actually smell the feces in the water. So this is really what we're dealing with. Sorry, am I shaking the camera? I just realized. So certain water that you drink in certain areas, you can actually smell the feces in the water. And so if there's a direct sort of connection to the water that you put in your mouth and the water that comes out of your body, in terms of your organs and your waste matter. So water is very critical. It's very critical that we get water right, because if your body is getting rid of it, it's eliminating it from your body. It's usually taking quite a lot of toxins with it. So we don't really want to ingest toxic poison. It's not really what we're aiming here. And so when it comes to food, it's very clear that the majority of food that's being sold is basically a byproduct of money-making schemes, in a way to get rid of toxins, in a way to get rid of bleach bacteria, bleach feces, mucus, and the rest of the chemicals that are made by either petroleum or processed rice, grain, wheats, and even juices. So processed sugar was also used by the Europeans, of which they enslaved quite a number of people so that they were able to sell sugar to people so that they would become diabetic. And then of course that funds the whole medical and health sector into being. So it's a kind of cycle of health. We create disease, you come to us, we treat disease, we get more funding, and then our psychopathic surgeons, who are mostly megalomaniacs, psychopaths, and estranged people, get to operate and cut bits out of you that should never. I mean, human body shouldn't be cut. The human body shouldn't be cut, or there's nothing that happens to the human body that does not happen to the earth itself. And so the earth is a self-healing mechanism. It's an organism that is self-healing. So if she is unwell, Mother Earth, then she creates fruits, vegetables, and herbs to heal herself. And those microorganisms come through the soil into the blossom, fall from the trees, absorbed into the earth, and heals Mother Nature. And so we are basically the same. Whatever heals Mother heals us, because we are Mother's children. So there really shouldn't be a point where there's a person that comes in and cuts things out of you because they've put so much poison, so much mucus, so much toxins into your body that you no longer function as a human being. And so they treat you almost like some sort of a surgical dummy. Anyway, so I just wanted to make this video so that everyone is very, very clear that the foods that are in the supermarket is really a funding industry that is closely related to the health industry. Hospitals, which are basically the byproduct of their waste, goes to cemeteries and funds that industry. And who dares recover, basically recovers at the hand of a surgeon who is a psychopath who gets off on cutting people open. Be very careful what you put in your body. Put more herbs in there. Put in your body what Mother Earth puts in her body, and she doesn't like cheese or milk. I don't even think the cows eat cheese, do they? No, they can't. They're not allowed.